All right. Well, this morning, grew up in the country and then moved here when I was 10 years old and discovered this thing called the ocean, and it was delightful because I think at the age of 10 I got my first surfboard, and every opportunity I could, I was in the surf. Can't you tell? Blonde hair. But this morning I want to talk to you about the difference between one who surfs the ocean and one who fishes the ocean. So before we get to that, let's go in the Bible to Joshua chapter 1. Sing out when you got it. Got it? Got it? Got it? All right, it says here in Joshua chapter 1, verse 1. It says, after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' servant is dead, and now you and all of these people get ready to cross the river Jordan into the land I have promised you, and I have given you. Down in verse 3 it says, I will give you every place where you set your foot, as I promised Moses. And keep coming down. Verse 5. Now no one will be able to stand against you all of the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. That's the basis of what I want to talk about this morning. So keep that in your mind. And now I want to talk about surfing. Who has surfed? Come on. Anyone? Who has swum in the ocean? Yeah, there we go. So you know what the waves are like. You know what they do. Sometimes there's big ones. Sometimes there's bigger ones. Sometimes there's massive ones. I want to talk to you about a surfer and the aspects and what it means to be a true blue, sold-out surfer. They need a few things, obviously. Board, wetsuit, somehow to get there. Just a few of the basic fundamental things of what you need to be a surfer. Can anyone think of anything else? Those who do the boogie board, like I do, you need a set of fins. So there are a few things like that you need. Some of them go for the biggest waves and they go absolutely nuts, and they'll actually need someone on a jet ski to pull them onto, which is just incredible. A couple of years back, there was something called the Biggest Wednesday.
I'm Jim Clash, and this is Adventurer, the show with guests who truly push their lives to the limits. No talking heads here, just the real deals. In the wake of the estimated 75-foot wave surfed last month at California's Chrch Bank, we decided to catch up with a man who knows something about big waves. 10 years ago, Ken Bradshaw set a world record for the largest wave ever surfed, an 85-foot behemoth at Outside Log Cabins Reef, a few miles off Hawaii's North Shore. The day was January 28, 1998, known as Big Wednesday. Bradshaw's record still stands. Following are excerpts from an interview conducted just a few miles from where he set his record.
The biggest thing I'd ever seen, it was like looking at a 4 or 5 story building just going through the ocean without breaking. It was just a big swell moving through the ocean at tremendous speed. Because we ended up being about 42, 43, 4 miles an hour with the boat, staying ahead of it as it began to reach the actual reef and then shoal up and get taller and taller. As it gets taller and taller, you finally have enough inertia and enough steepness that you can let go of the rope, and then you can actually begin surfing. So as soon as I let go of the rope, Dan pulls away, and then I begin to drop down.
We are afraid at all?
It's funny. It's hard for anybody to really understand a lifelong passion. I mean, I used to sit and watch this particular area in the ocean break on those really big days at Waimea, when we couldn't surf Waimea, we were forced to stay on land because there was no way to get to it. And we actually would sit on the hillside or the cliffside or the beach in front of it and look at this wave going, that wave's incredible. That wave's top to bottom and it's got to be 40 feet. It's got to have an 80-foot face on it. And we were calling that the biggest wave we'd ever seen. So to finally have that day happen, to finally be there for that day, to finally actually ride that place I've always wanted to surf my whole life, like 25 years of waiting for that day. No, I wasn't scared. I wanted it. I wanted things so bad that even though I saw it behind me, and I was afraid Dan might not want me to have it, and when we were going for that wave, I remember just going, on the end of the road going, he'd look back and he'd look at what was behind me, and you could see in his eyes, and I was afraid he was going to pull away. I was afraid he was going to give up. And I kept going, go! I just kept doing this. Go, don't you stop! Don't you stop! Because I had to depend on him to get me there. And if he didn't believe I could want it, and you could tell in his eyes when he kept looking over his shoulder, he didn't like what he saw. And I kept going, no, go, go, go,
So maybe he was a little more afraid than you were.
He was a bit more apprehensive, obviously, the whole day. But then Dan didn't have the same passion that I had.
Who'd like to be on that? Anyone? I've surfed for 20 odd years now, and I guarantee you I would not want to be on that. That is huge. There's a couple of things I want to pull out of that though. Who reckons that guy is 100% sold out to what he does? You reckon? Who reckons he has got 100% committed to what he's doing? Yeah. The difference between that, though, and one who fishes in the ocean is that some of the characteristics of a surfer, and we all know what a surfers are like, some of them, the ones that are sold out. Now, I'm a Christian surfer, and there's Christian surfers out there, and not every surfer, I'm making a fairly broad assumption here, bear with me. But they're all in it for the wave, man. They're all in it for the now, man. And everything is about just trying to be in the moment. Just catching the biggest wave I can, and it's all about the next adventure. We've all seen movies about what surfers are like. Is that a fairly good, accurate assumption? They're only in it for themselves. They're only in it for those type of people. They're basically just there to go, I want the biggest rush I can. I want to experience life to the max. And they're only in it for themselves. Wave surfing is, unless you need a jet ski to pull you on because the waves are just literally that big. Surfing is quite solitary. You can do it with other people, obviously. But once you're on your wave, it's just you and the wave. And I think that's a lot what surfers go for. They're looking for peace in that. They're looking for the tranquility of just surfing something like that completely on their own. And the rush that it gives them when they drop down. See when he was right at the top there on one of those shots and he come down the wave and the wave had started to break in front of him. He knew he wasn't going to get down the face, so he actually peeled back up and jumped over the top. To stand at the top of that on a surfboard and look down, I don't know whether you heard him say, is about a 4 or 5 story wall of water coming towards you. That you're just looking down like that going, this doesn't end. So that's the rush, that's the thrill, that's the everything. Like I said, do you reckon he's passionate about what he does? I reckon he is. The interviewer there asked him, were you scared? And he said, no, I wasn't, because it's something that I'd wanted to do all my life. So he was so passionate about it. He was so sold out for it. But at the end of the day, was it for the right reason? Was his passion there for the right reason? Was his passion there because he can do this for God? Was his passion there because he's riding the waves, just worship? When I dropped down, I've dropped down, probably the biggest face I've dropped down was probably nearly 3 meters. And that is a fairly big wave. That was so big one year that it pulled the shark nets at Mooloolaba onto the beach. And there were 2 meter white wall waters just crashing straight onto Mooloolaba beach. And if you could get out through them, then you'd catch something way out past the shark nets. And it was huge. And the first couple of drops that I went to do on the board, and I just looked down the wave and I just went, no way. And I pull back like that and I pull off the board and pull off the wave and then quickly turn around and paddle like crazy, because it wasn't that one you had to contend with. It was his mate and his mate and his mate after that you had to get back out. So after that one, I pulled off that one and I thought, I'm out here. I've got to try and muster something here, because this is going to be an absolute waste of time if I don't take this drop. So you find something in you to take that drop and to drop down the face of that wave. And when you do, I tell you, it is just incredible to be taking advantage of something that God has put in place, and something as simple as riding a wave that we can have a bit of fun with. My motives for rushing down that wave, everything in me just screamed out, God, this is awesome. This is amazing. I only did the one and then straight into shore. But I did it. It was massive. So I can't even begin to think what something another 2 or 3 stories on top of that would look like. And what you would have to muster inside. What I'm trying to get across to you guys, these guys are sold out for this. They're passionate for this. They're committed to it. Pastor Paul joked about flying me here, and that was funny, but these guys spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a year chasing waves like this. And when this set moves and the ocean shifts, they go and chase the next wave. And they'll get in their planes and get in their cars and they'll drive around countries and they'll chase the next wave, chase the next thrill. Because it's like anything. Once you experience something like that, I guarantee you that bloke that rode that big wave, he now, everything in him wants to ride a bigger one. That was called Biggest Wednesday. And to this day, we still haven't seen anything like it. They were massive. But I guarantee you, if something like that happens again, that dude, even though that was how many years ago? What did it say? 1998? Good listening, Kay. That's going to be a long time away. He may be a lot older than that. Imagine someone like good old Pat down the back there. Used to surf all his life, and all of a sudden the big surf comes and he goes, I'm pulling out the surfboard. I'm going back into the water. And Marilyn's sitting on the shore going, well, give me a kiss because I don't think you're coming back. But the passion inside someone that has been as sold out as these guys, it wouldn't matter how old they would just want to get out and have another go. And that's where it's at. Is it, though, for the right reasons? Now, the difference is then a fisherman. See, I think, before I jump past that, let's go to Matthew chapter 19. Verse 20. And it's the parable of the rich young man. And in verse 20 it says, all these I have kept. The rich young man says to Jesus, all these I have kept. And yet, what is it that I still lack? And we all know that parable. And he says, sell everything you have and come and follow me. And the guy didn't. We all know the parable. He didn't do that. Why? It's because he couldn't make the mindset shift to giving up what he had to following Jesus. It was because it says in here, he was a man of great wealth. He couldn't make that shift. And this is where the difference between someone who surfs, now hear me, if you're a surfer like I am, I'm not saying you surf, you go to hell. I'm not saying that at all. But sometimes the difference between someone who is that sold out and passionate for something, like this rich young ruler was. You can't tell me he was rich and he was young. He was sold out. He was passionate about his money. And when God asked him to give it up and come and follow me, it says he couldn't. Now you ask a surfer to give surfing up. Everything in their life revolves around being close to the ocean so as they can catch their next wave. If you said, I want you to come with me, move into town, move into the, like out to Ayers Rock, and I want you to come and follow me, would he be able to, it'd be the same thing for a surfer. Would he be able to do it? Would he be able to give it up? And I tell you, the majority of the surfers that I know who aren't Christians, they're in it for them. They're in it for the surf. They're in it for, that's it. But it's not picking on them. I want to demonstrate to you through that their heart attitude. And it's exactly like this rich young ruler. Now, if you're a fisherman, I was going to have some photos, but I didn't want to brag. But if you've been on my Facebook account, you'll have seen some of the fish that I have caught. And they're not that big. I can get 8 kilos. I can get 8 kilos or 9 kilos of fillets off one of the biggest cod that I've caught. And that left his head and the frame and everything. So anyway, that was a big fish. I think in all, it was about 16 kilos. And we go out and we fish and we catch fish and we have a lot of fun doing that. But I want to tell you a couple of differences now between a fisherman. They need all this stuff too. Obviously, you can't go and fish without a boat. You catch brim on the shore. Who loves brim? We went out and didn't use a boat the other week and we fished in the Golden Beach Passage down here, and a lot of people don't realise that there's this many fish still out there. But we probably caught 50 whiting. And we threw back 20 of them because they were too small. But come home with about 30 whiting, between 26 and about 32 centimetres in length. And they're great fun to catch. But you use a rod, you use a reel, sometimes you use a hand line. We were talking to a guy at work this week. He goes out and fishes in 90 metres of water with a hand line. And I tell you, he can afford a reel. I just don't know why. Anyway, each to their own. Then, of course, you need an anchor. You need the bait. You need the fishing tackle. And here's the critical parts. You need the tide, and you need to look at your weather. Because I think one of the things that separate a fisherman and a surfer is their ability to be able to stay in one spot and fish where they know is going to reap the reward. To stick with what they know. I go out with fishermen and we'll go to a certain few spots that he takes us to. I'm actually in the process of building him a new boat trailer in my front yard at the moment. And we go out to his marks and he'll go to the same marks over and over again. And he'll have his marks and he goes back to those marks over and over again. Because why? He knows those marks are faithful. He knows that when he goes to those marks, he's going to catch fish. He doesn't just drive out in his boat, chuck the anchor over the side, and just, all right, boys, drop your lines, have a go. And there's no little, who knows what a bommy is? Any fishermen here that know what a bommy is? It's where you actually, the ocean is flat, but when they look through it with all the gear that they've got these days, they can see the contours. And you might be going across, see, if you go out off Mooloolaba, it goes 16 metres of water, 20 metres of water, 30 metres of water, and it stays at about 35 metres of water to 45 metres of water for a long time, really long time. That's as deep as it gets. But then in some spots you'll actually have what they call a bommy, so the ground through the rocks underneath or whatever it is, it's actually pushed the bottom of the ocean up. So you can guarantee that when you get around one of those spots, there's going to be fish, because bait fish hang around there that provide a bit of shelter, all of those sorts of things, everything that a fisherman would know. So they have the ability to be able to stick to what they know, do what they know. The other beauty about a fisherman is, we'll look at this story. Go to Luke chapter 5. Luke chapter 5 verse 1. Down in verse, we'll start at verse, we'll go to verse 10. And it's talking there about that Jesus was talking on the shores, and as he was getting down to the shores, the crowds got so bad, so he saw a fisherman there, and he said to the fisherman, "Take me a little ways out from the beach. Take me a little way out from the shore." And as he was speaking to the crowds, and he'd spoke to the crowds, and he'd addressed them, I would have loved to have known what he'd said to the crowds, but it doesn't say that. But anyway, after he's addressed the crowds, he says to the two fishermen, he says, "Drop your nets." And they say to him, "But Lord, we've been fishing all night and we're tired. And we're weary. And we just want to go home." And he says, just drop down your nets. And one of the fishermen says, "Lord, because it's you who've asked, I'll do that." And he drops his nets down. And what does the story go? We know the story. They catch so much that they have to call their second boat from the shore to help them reel in the biggest catch they possibly can catch. And then once they get the catch ashore, the nets are starting to rip, the biggest catch that two boats that can possibly handle. They pull these nets up, and one of the fishermen comes over and falls on his face before God, and he says, before Jesus, and he says, "God, I'm so not worthy." And he says, "Come on, stand up." He said, "Today I've taught you to catch fish. Today I've shown you that you can catch fish. But from now on, you're going to come with me and we're going to catch men. I'm going to teach you to fish for men." I think that's the difference between a surfer and a fisherman. Because one of the beauty of it is the fact that a fisherman throughout his life will grow up as a fisherman. Even if not yet he hasn't caught a fish. Because fishermen believe that it's a generational job. And men back here in these days, they were fishermen because their fathers were fishermen. So there's a beauty of the generational little secrets. When we're out fishing, I can go out there and I know a little bit about fishing, enough to catch some fish. But the guy I go out with in his boat, The first couple of times he's rigged my knots up, and when you fish the bottom, you actually drop a big sinker on the bottom, and then a little bit up from that you put a hook, and then a little bit up from that you put another hook. And there's a certain knot that you do to get all of that in place. Now I can have a crack at that. And the first fish I went and caught, it just run off with my bait and a bit of jewellery in the side of its mouth that'll rust out in no time. But all my gear was gone because I didn't understand what it meant to tie a knot properly. So Luke grabs my reel and says, "Give it here, I'm not going to let you waste any more of my tackle." So he ties all this thing up, and I fished the whole day, and we caught so much 153 litre esky we couldn't close the lid. We had to dig the ice out, put it on a towel, put all the fish in, and then put the towel over, and then put the ice on top to try and keep our fish cold for the 2-hour run we had home. Now I can catch fish like that, and we can catch fish like that based on the fact that, would I have caught fish like that if I had have been sticking to my own knots? No. But the blessing that comes with someone else who's been there and done that and fished before, that comes along and says, "Here's how you tie the knots. Let's go." And you drop the rod down, and before all of a sudden you got the sinker, a hook, and a hook, and you go, "Yep, I'm on." And Luke's going, "Reel it up, Les, you're on." And then all of a sudden, like I caught the baby on the bottom hook. And then all of a sudden Dad goes, "Oh no, I'm coming too." And the dad jumps on the top hook, and it nearly pulls me over the side of the boat. And it really proved to me that without the experience of what Luke could give me in the way that he ties knots, there's no way I would have caught those fish. And in the same way, a fisherman, the generational thing of a fisherman, they fish like that, and they understand that, and they're good at what they do. Why? Because their fathers have taught them. It's a generational thing. So they understand what it's like to listen to someone. There's a saying, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. But that's what they do. They'll listen to those types of people in their life. Pastor Phil was talking last week about a spiritual parent. Who's got spiritual parents? Everyone. You got your mum and dad, you got their natural parents, and then you got spiritual parents. People around you that you've allowed to speak into your life. And that's the beauty of the generational fisherman. He's not just basing everything that he knows on his knowledge of what a fish does and how to tie knots. He's got thirds and fourths and fifth generation. We tie knots like this, son, because that's what we know works. That's what we've proven works. In Hebrews chapter 6, verse 11 and 12, I won't go there, but it talks about be imitators of those who have gone before you. Be imitators of those who have proven and tested their faith. Have we got grandparents and parents that are no longer with us that you look to and you just go, there's a person who I look to and I just focus just the majority of my life around the way they lived because they proved to me through their life that God's word is faithful to them. They set things in place. They put things in motion based on the fact that they knew God's word would be faithful to them. And now we in hindsight look back and go, that was amazing. And you can see that. And that's what the Bible's talking about. Just be imitators. See, that's what being a generational fisherman is. Why does a son tie his knots the same way a father ties his knots? Because all he does is imitate. Until he catches his first fish and understands that the knots that Dad taught me to tie hold when I catch a fish, as opposed to the knots that I think I might know myself that lose fish. You catching it? But that's what a generational fisherman does. The other beauty about a fisherman is that they're loyal to their spots. They're loyal to what they know is true. Why would you not be when you actually understand that you catch a fish there? So I'm going to go back to that mark. I'm going to go back to that point. Luke doesn't go, oh, well, I'm just going to go and try some random spot out in the ocean when we go fishing. If we're not caught a fish in 3 or 4 minutes, he's anchors up, boys, let's go. And we anchor off. Drive off to the next spot, drop the anchor, and try again. But it's faithful to those spots that he knows he's going to catch fish. And sometimes I think, church, what we need in our lives are anchors that keep us in those spots. See, out there in the ocean, you're in 90 metres of water, which is about the biggest amount of water I've fished in, with a little 1:3 revolution rod that's got a little spool on it that big. So anyone who's much better at maths than I am can probably tell me how many revolutions I've got to do to get a massive fish up from the bottom of the ocean. But when you're out there fishing in those deep waters, the current, believe it or not, is really strong. So the water just sits, and even on a calm day it just sits, but it's still all moving. So to stay on the spot that we know is true, that we know is faithful, that we know to be right, that's going to produce fish, we need an anchor. So you put the anchor out, and you let a little bit more out, and you watch the sounder, and you let a little bit more out, and you watch the sounder again. And when it comes to those bommies that I was talking about before, you stop and you tie the knot off. And your boat's locked there because the current's just pushing you in the same direction. And that way, when we know that when we drop a rod over the side of the boat, we're going to catch fish. There's some fundamental things about a fisherman like that are just so true to what our church life should be like. We've heard pastors talk about being planted. Have we not? Who's heard a message about being planted? Putting down roots. But being anchored in is exactly the same thing. Finding your spot where you can put an anchor out, where you know that you can get a generational help along. Who was blessed to see our 2 youth up on the stage this morning playing guitars? Come on. That does my heart, it really does. To see our young people at the back on the sound desk, so faithful to what they do. And they're locked in and they're anchored in because they know that they can actually get a generational blessing here. I think of the dads that are around the place. We got the Cullens here this morning. Welcome, guys. But Ray and Glenda Cullen are just incredible people. I've known them for so long. And incredible parents like that we, each and every one of us, have got in our lives. And then the spiritual parents. We did Mother's Day the other week. Now, I'll apologise the fact that we couldn't invite all our mums, but we actually grabbed a whole heap of our mums that we knew that the mums weren't going to have their kids around. And we grabbed a few of the mums in the church and we took them to our place on Mother's Day, Sunday night. We did a massive, beautiful dinner for them. And we just loved on them because they're the people that are the generational spiritual parents to us. We just wanted to bless them back. But this church is full of people that just want to impart what they know. The Bible says in Hebrews 6, be imitators of those that have tested and proven that God's word is faithful. They've been there. They've done that. They've got the t-shirt. Not completely. They might have half the shirt. Because I don't think we all ever get the full shirt, do we? This is one of the most powerful things that I think God's taught me in the last little bit about being anchored into something that can produce. Being anchored in and locked in somewhere that's going to look after you. Being anchored in and locked in somewhere that you're just going to be a generational blessing. I remember having the Lou kids in my youth group years and years ago. And now to have Jesse, the youth leader, to my kids is priceless. And to have my son be one of the ones standing up there playing his guitar this morning. That's good. But it's about being a generational church and being a generational person. It's about knowing what God's put in you, and it's not just for you, it's for someone else. It's for that next line of people that are coming through. What Lenice and Steve do down at Happy Valley, that's what she said this morning, summed it up perfect. It's not about what she can do, it's everything about what God can do through us. I think Jesse said that in a worship as well. It's amazing to see that that's where we're at. I just want to encourage you this morning with that, church. I wanted to see us be fishermen. Not just surfers. Now, it's good to be a surfer that's sold out and passionate about something. And I think if you can cross a fisherman with a surfer who's sold out and passionate about the things that they're locked into and the generational things that they're locked into, if we can stir some passion about like that, what that guy does right there on that wave, dropping down that massive wave and what it must muster up inside of him to make the drop like that, and challenge ourselves that as generational people, that God's placed something like that inside of each and every one of you to pass on to the next generation. To pass on to the people that you find in your workplace. To pass on to the people that you might bump into. I love Lenice saying that they're going on a cruise. Poor you guys. That's so hard. But good on you. That's so good. But I love her heart that says, God, give me those opportunities. Give me those God encounter moments where, yes, she can go out on a cruise and she can enjoy herself with her husband. But her whole heart is still, give me those opportunities, those God points where you can just bring someone across my path, that I can just share out of what you've done. So you can argue with someone all day long about their knowledge of the Scripture against your knowledge of the Scripture. Does it get you anywhere? Only sometimes if you can prove that your knowledge is more than what their knowledge is. Only sometimes. How you gain someone is through the power of a testimony. And through the power of no one can tell me about when God changes my life, no one can tell me that that's not God. No one can tell me that that's not because of the generational things that God's put in my heart, because I'm a 4th and 5th generation Christian, and who knows how long after that. That's only back as far as I've tracked my family tree. I remember my mum saying a story about the fact that her grandfather, so what would that be, my great-grandfather? Great-great or great? Great-great? They would get home from school, and he was going a little bit funny, but he was unplugging the washing machine because he was hell-bent on taking the washing machine to the roof because God was coming and he wanted clean clothes in heaven. And she tells funny stories like that, and we laugh about them, and there's a few different ones like that. But the most powerful story she tells me is the fact that there were Christians in my heritage way back. And it's those things that really bless me. So this morning, church, I just want to encourage you with that. Let us be found being fishermen that are locked in, that are anchored in, that have a heart like a surfer, who's sold out and passionate about the things God's put in their life. Because if we can catch that, I tell you that the guy that drops down a wave like that, I tell you, let's just say he's a bigger man than what I am. Because that takes I think you know where I'm going. That takes courage, yes, a whole load of courage. So it's that type of person, guys. I just want to encourage you with that this morning. Let's find somewhere in our heart that we can rely back on some of the faithful things. Allow God to, if you shut your eyes with me this morning, and allow God to just put in your heart, put in your mind some of the people that He's gone before you. Some of the people that have shown and proven and tested the waters, and you've found them to be true. You've found them to be fruitful. Because I think we've all got them. In one way, shape or form, we've got those types of people in our life. Whether it be our parents, whether it be our spiritual parents, whether it be a workmate, whether it be a peer that just seems to always keep you on the right track. But God is so good, and His word is so faithful. And as you gain the heart and the mindset of what it takes to be a fisherman, and God comes along and taps you on the shoulder like He did to the 2 disciples, and He said, today you've caught a great deal of fish, but today I'm going to make a heart set shift. And today I'm going to teach you to fish for men. In your environment, in your workplace, in your schools, wherever you do life, my prayer is the same as Lenice's, and that's just bring God encounters across your path, where you can just speak out something that's proven and tested because it's been a generational hand-me-down. You can't argue with that. You just can't. Because God is a faithful God, and when you know of His faithfulness to you through the generations, that is so powerful. And then allow that understanding to start to stir a passion and a level of commitment to something like what we just saw, that surfer. So God, I just want to thank you this morning, Lord. I just pray that you would just instill in our hearts what we actually have with being generational Christians. And guys, if you're in this place this morning and you're a first-time Christian, then you have the privilege and the pleasure of actually starting something not just for you, but for your children and your children's children. Because it always starts somewhere. And if your kids are away from God, God, we just call them back right now. We call them back in Jesus' name. If you've got kids like that, if you've got people in your life like that, I just want you to stand to your feet this morning and start to pray for them. Start to raise them up. God, we just lift up those people before you this morning. We thank you for putting them in our life. God, use us as vessels, Father God, to just do your will. God, from this day forward, let us be found to be fishermen that not just fish for fish, but fish for men. God, we thank you for it, Lord. In Jesus' name. Mighty God, mighty God.